Hey guys, I'm back, and as you can see by the title, this is a story time about how God came and got me. So I'm just put this out here. It was really hard for me to record this video because I don't know if it's because I'm doing it on this platform or I don't know. I've shared this story with a few people, quite a few people actually, and I've always shared this story because I feel like this is where it all started for me as far as how I got to this place of where I am now. But honestly, God, He's always with us and He's always doing things for us and in us and through us, even from when we were born. But this is like the actual time when God was like, okay, it's time to come on in. So I hope you enjoy my story. So just to give you a little background, I did not grow up in church. My family was the type of family that went to church on Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, all of that. And let me not say my whole family. I'll just say my parents. As a child, they taught me about God and I knew God, but we weren't in church every Sunday like that. It wasn't like that at all. And actually, a lot of things that I know about Christianity actually came from Catholicism because I was in Catholic school from kindergarten all the way up until I was a senior in high school. So as a child, I was always around Catholics and Catholic people and all of that. So fast forward, when I get to college, this is when God began to beckon me and call me in. So when I went to school, and I am going to leave the name of my school out. If you know me personally, you already know the name of the school, but I'll just keep the rest of you all in suspense. But it was a state school and it was a big university and all of that. And the school was predominantly African American, not African American, it was predominantly white. So when I got to college, I ended up joining this choir. It was a black choir. And I remember the first time going there, it was like, this is where all the black people are. Like, I couldn't believe it because my first year there, I didn't know anybody. Like, when I say I didn't know anybody, I didn't know nobody. I had that roommate who was never there. She found the boyfriend and she was gone. So it was pretty much like I was on my own. But I remember finding this choir and it was like everything, something I've never experienced before. I saw young people, young black people who were on fire. When I say they was on fire for God, they was on fire. And for me, I'm just like, this is cool because in high school, I went to an all-girl, mostly Hispanic school, and so the culture was very different. So me being this girl coming from an all-girl school, now I'm in a co-ed school with all these black people in this organization. It was life for me. So when we used to be in choir rehearsal, they used to do teachings sometimes, and I remember the teachings, they used to do something to my spirit, but I didn't know really what was going on. I just knew God was speaking to me in a lot of the teachings that they do and songs that we would sing when we would go out to like concerts or different churches. Like, God was really speaking to me and saying, okay, Fanshawn, I need you to come a little closer. But me, I'm just like, no, I'm in college. Like, I'm about to have fun. I'm trying to go to the parties. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. And man, when I tell you some of the things, I feel like I have stories for days, but I just want to take you through this one particular journey. I will share two or three small stories within this story so you can understand the progression of how God came and got me. So my first year, I remember I started, and I can't even say dating. I just started messing with this guy. He was a senior, getting ready to graduate, and of course I was a freshman. So I'm like, yeah, like, here's this guy. I met him at this party. You know, he was dark, thick, and handsome. And it was just everything for me. And I didn't really have that in high school. So, you know, I'm dating this upperclassman. He was probably 20 something, like 22, 23, and I was 18. So I was loving it. I'm like, yes. So I remember getting in this relationship with him, and the relationship, I didn't have the language at the time because I didn't know what God was doing. But I remember when I used to be with him, I would get so convicted that we will be in the middle of things and I would just start crying, just bawling. And he would look at me like, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? And it was like the Holy Spirit would convict me so bad that all I could do was cry. And so eventually he graduated and we stopped talking. And yeah, he went on with his life. So second year, I'm still in the choir. I'm still trying to do my thing. So it's like I'm in and out. I'm still on the fence, trying to figure out, like, do I go in with this whole God thing or do I continue to kick it while I'm in college? So I remember I had two friends when I went to college, and I met both of them while we were in the choir, and we became so close. We was like thick as thieves. And so as our relationship grew, I remember one of the young ladies in our little circle, she was starting to get really close to God, and she went to this local church that was in the town that our college was in, and she was like really taking this walk with God seriously. So I remember one day she said me and my other friend down, and she like gave us an ultimatum. She like, look, I'm trying to live my life for God. I want to take this thing serious, and I know you all are not really doing it. So either y'all gonna get right and follow God, or we can't be friends no more, pretty much. And I'm just like, wait, what? So my one friend was just like, well, I ain't ready, it's whatever. And I'm like, wait, because I don't want to lose a friend, but I still want to kick it too. So I'm just like, you know, I hear what you're saying, and I'm almost there, but I'm not really there. So I don't know. And so eventually she just really stopped talking to us and stopped messing with us because she wanted to follow God. And from where I am now, I can understand that. Like, she had to make a choice. And if you're not around people that ain't trying to live like you, then you got to kick them to the curb, because bad company corrupts good character. Like, seriously. So I understand that now. At that time, I'm just like, man, she just dropped us like it wasn't nothing, but I understand. So after my second year, I remember feeling like, you know, this quiet thing, it was fun the first 2 years, but then after a while, it wasn't the same. I guess because leadership had changed. I started seeing more things happening around the campus that I wanted to do, like join a sorority, get more involved in other things, because the choir was all I had. That's all I did, was just the choir, and I wanted to venture out and do more things. So my second year was my decision to leave the choir. So that decision of me leaving the choir was like my disconnect from everything. And so I made that decision not really knowing what I wanted to do and how, and I'm not going to say how it affected me, but it definitely took me on a path that God had to come get me from. So my third year, I ended up meeting another guy, and me and him started dating. And actually this was, okay, let me go back. because this was actually in my second year because I was still in the choir. And this is a story that I do want to share. It's a small story within this big story. So I was talking to this guy, and I remember God specifically telling me, like, he's not the one. You don't want to mess with him. Like, leave him alone. And I remember being at another church. We were at like an engagement, and we were like on a break or something, and I remember sitting in the sanctuary by myself, and I was literally arguing with God, saying, God, I can't leave him because he need me. And it was like me and God was going back and forth. He like, no, you, like, he will be good without you. You need to leave him alone. I'm like, God, no, like, I cannot leave this man. So let me tell you, God still does this to me sometimes. He literally has to put me in situations so I can know you're going to have to trust me when I tell you no. So one random, it was like a Friday night, my neighbor knocks on my door and says, because I was staying in the dorms at this time. He knocked on my door and said, can you go downstairs and get me a Gatorade? Like, when I say the request was so random, first of all, it had to be about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I had on pajamas. This was like in the middle of winter. I'm like, why would you come and ask me that? It was just so random, right? But for some reason, I agreed to it. I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever, I'll go. I go downstairs, get the Gatorade. Do y'all know what happened? The fire alarm started going off. I'm like, what? What's happening? So usually when fire alarms go off, it's a drill. No one ever really goes out. I always stayed in my room because it was only a drill. And if something was really happening, I could go downstairs. So I'm just like, dang, I can't go back to my room because people were down in the lobby making people go out. Can I put emphasis on that it was the middle of winter? All I had on was a t-shirt and some shorts. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I cannot go outside like this. Do you know they made me go outside in the middle of winter with shorts and a t-shirt on? So I'm outside freezing. Someone gives me the coat. I'm waiting around, just trying to wait to get back in. Do you know I see the man that I'm supposedly dating walk into another dorm with another young lady? And I'm just like, he looked me dead in my face. And I waved, he waved, and I'm just like, excuse me, what? Hello, hi, it's me, the girl that you're dating, hello. And he kept walking. He waved at me like I was old girl on the street, or I'm just like, did he? So of course I go back upstairs, give the neighbor the Gatorade, and me and him texting. You know what he texted me? Why were you standing in the cold with shorts on? What? At this point, I wasn't even cold no more. When I say I was mad, but I couldn't even get as mad as I could because I'm just like, wow, God, right? Like, seriously, you have to go through the hoops to get me to this place where I can see that. I had to see it for myself. So eventually me and him stopped talking, and one day I was in a computer lab, just on the computer. And at this time, this is when Facebook first came out, and I feel like I'm telling my age right now. So this is when Facebook first came out, and Facebook was only for college students. And so I remember a girl was sitting next to me, and she was on the phone a girl was sitting next to her, and she was telling the other girl, she was just like, yeah, my friend back at home wants me to look on so-and-so's page because she thinks he's messing with someone here. And when I looked at the computer, why, it was his profile. And I looked and I'm like, wait, what? So I didn't say nothing because I wanted to hear. So she was talking to the girl saying like, yeah. Oh, no, she was on the phone. It wasn't nobody next to her. She was on the phone because she kept like going through his profile and saying all this other stuff. And so long story short, He was messing with me. He was messing with another girl on campus, and he had a whole girlfriend at home. And I'm just like, God, I felt like Boo Boo the Fool. But it was a way for God to teach me and tell me, like, look, I know what's best for you, and I'm trying to help you if you would just listen. So all of that happened. I progress on. Fast forward to like my 4th year. So between those years, I end up, so I pre-pledged a sorority, but I didn't complete my pledge in that. So I end up joining another organization that was a sisterhood. We was It felt like we were a sorority. We just weren't Greek. I should say that. We weren't Greek, but we were set up and we did a lot of things like a sorority. And I just remember being in this organization and just loving it. Like when I said I kicked it, I was kicking it so hard. But even in that, God only let me go so far, because I remember there were times when I wanted to do more things, but either something came up, a party got canceled, I had to work. My job when I was in school was working at a front desk in one of the dorms, and I used to work at night. So a lot of times they would call me in to work a Friday night, a Thursday night. That's when all the parties and stuff go on. But God knew, like, no, you gonna go out there, I'm gonna only let you go so far. So let's take it towards my last year. So my last year, I was in this organization. You know, I was feeling really empty. I didn't know what none of this stuff meant or what it was. I just knew there was a void in my life, and I'm just like, God, I think I need to go to church or something. Like something was missing in my life and I didn't know what it was. So I remember going back to a concert that the choir was hosting that year, and I remember when I went, they were in like praise and worship, and one of their guest artists was Micah Stampley. I don't know if you all know of him, but he's a gospel artist, and I will never forget this. So he began to sing. He wasn't even like fully singing. He was like humming some stuff. All I know was I was on my face crying so hard. Like the man that wasn't even saying words, he just started like singing some melodies. It felt like I was on the floor for a long time. I just know when I got up, like the entire place was just gone. People were running. People were also on the floor. People were crying. It was like the glory of God came so heavy in that place. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I had to bow down, and before I knew it, I was just gone, just out, just gone, just out of there. And so I'm just like, yeah, something is happening and I need to go to church. So I found this church that I started attending, and there was a Bible study that they had during the week for college students. So I started attending that. So this is a shout out to the lady who used to host that. Her name was Sister Monica. When I say Sister Monica was one of the main people in my life that changed my life, like her Bible study set me up. She answered so many questions that I didn't know, I didn't have language for, I didn't know anything about. I remember telling her that I was praying, but it felt like every time I prayed, the enemy would snatch away my prayers and they weren't going up to heaven. And she told me, she said, you know, there's a language that you could speak to God that the devil can't understand. And this was my first time ever hearing about tongues. And she was like, you could pray this language and the devil can't get it. And I'm like, well, I need this. What is that? And she said, tongues. Ask God for tongues. And I was just like, okay. I went back to my dorm room and I prayed. And granted, I didn't get I didn't start speaking in tongues until like a year or so later, or like maybe 2 years later, because I was at my church. Um, but it was such an innocent prayer. But she was the one that exposed me to stuff like that. And so as I continue to go to this Bible study and I continue to go to this church, God was calling me in. And one thing he wanted me to do, which I ain't know nothing about, was getting baptized. At this point, I was probably like 20, 21. I think I was 20. And I'm just like, you want me to get baptized? Sorry if you hear an ambulance. I live near a hospital, so please excuse that. But yes, God kept saying, like, you need to join this church and get baptized. So at this time, I was talking to another guy, and I didn't even really like him like that. It was because of who he was and what he represented. I wanted to talk to him. So, in the midst of me talking to him, I was still on the fence with this whole walking with God. Even though I was getting poured into and all of this other stuff, I was still living a secular life. I was still doing what I wanted to do pretty much. And so I remember being with this guy, and this was the first time, now that I understand it, this was the first time me knowing, me not having conviction, I should say. Me and him would do certain things, and when I say I didn't feel anything, I didn't feel bad, I didn't feel good, I felt completely empty and numb inside. And it was almost like, man, I don't even want to start crying, but it was almost like whatever it is that was in me was not in there no more. And I know it was because, I was still living this life of what I wanted to do. And so the day I got up to join the church, when I say I was sweating so hard, I was so scared because I've never did anything like that before. And this was a Baptist church, one of those churches you got to get up in the front and talk and all of that. I was so scared, but I ended up doing it. I did it. They said I could get baptized, and that's what happened. And in that year, that's when things started changing for me. That's when things just started falling into place. I consistently started going to church every Sunday. I stopped messing with the one guy. And I think because, too, I stopped messing, then another reason that I was feeling the way that I felt is because before him and then when I met him, there was a long stretch where I was celibate. And I was holding out because I'm just like, God, I don't think you want me to have sex. And honestly, this is how naive I was and how much I didn't know anything about the Bible. I did not know sex was not a sin. I did not know that. Never read it. I've never had people to tell me, like, no, don't do it. Everybody that taught me about sex was always teaching me to stay safe, and that was it. Never knew that sex was a sin until I read it for myself. And so that's where the conviction and all of that was coming from. But then that's when I stopped. I stopped for a long time, but then, of course, I met this guy and stuff happened, and that's when I was numb. But once I finally got baptized and I finally said, okay, God, you got me. I'm about to stop running. That's when things began to progress for me. I ended up graduating from school. I came home. I'm just like, I've been so used to going to church, I need a church home. And so I went on a search for a couple of months trying to look for a church. And when I say I felt like I went to every church in the city when I went back home, it was a lot of churches, but someone invited me to the church that I'm at right now. and I've been there for like 8 or 9 years, and the rest is history. So I have other stories of post-graduation and how things progressed to where I am now. But this story of me being in college and how I had my ups and my downs, how, you know, God's calling me in, but I'm like, no, because of this relationship, or no, because I want to have my college experience. Man, that was the beginning for me once I finally said yes, and I did it. So I hope you enjoy my story time. This was something really personal to my heart because, of course, it's my story and it's how God called me, and this was my life. And even with this being a story, there's still so many other stories and so many other things that happened that, and this video is already like almost 30 minutes long. I just wanted to give you a quick synopsis of what went on and how I got to where I am now, at least the foundation of it. So I hope you enjoy my story time. Please comment below if you can relate to this story. Maybe if you want to share how God maybe came and got you when you answered the call or didn't answer the call, whatever. But yeah, I would really, really love to hear from you. So please like this video, subscribe if this is your first time, because there will be more story times and more things to share, and of course vlogs and challenges and all that good stuff. So yes, please comment, like, subscribe, tell a family, tell a friend, share this with someone who may need to hear someone else's story of how they may have been in college and went through this. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you later. Bye.